he made this yard. Have you ever made a yard before?
How do you make? You mean design a yard?
Well, that kind of gets at the point. So isn't that an interesting phrase? Not like he took care of the yard or like he, did yard work. No, he made this yard.
Yeah, and it almost makes me think like he designed it.
Yeah, I get like Garden of Eden vibes. Like Genesis kind of.
Except for God did it, right?
Yes.
Those two seem kind of lazy.
But there's a sense of being able to create even a small space, right? Mm-hmm. Because there is kind of like a Genesis aspect. He made this yard. Each blade, each stem, each stalk. There's kind of like a biblical kind of hearkening going on to a degree, right? So that's another thing your editors are looking for. What are you alluding to? And the allusions don't feel like you have to include them just to include them. They enrich. It's not just, I'm not just doing this just for fun. I'm doing it because it adds to the poem.
Yeah.
Right? Like in this case, what do we know about Genesis? What happens in the book of Genesis?
Oh, yeah, basically the world is created.
And?
Well, okay, the whole universe is created by God.
How does it end?
It ends with those Adam and Eve getting kicked out of Eden.
Okay, so it doesn't have a happy ending. So the Garden of Eden implies that there's going to be a negative. Things aren't going to be perfect forever. Mm-hmm. This story, this line is doing the same thing. He made this yard. Each blade, each stem, each stalk, except... There's a lot of parallelism here with kind of the Genesis story.
Wow.
Because like in the Genesis story, you have the snake.
Yeah.
Which is kind of... They don't mention God making the snake. The snake kind of appears, right?
Right.
And ultimately it leads to the corruption.
Yeah.
And in this case, what does he not make? He doesn't make the mounds of dirt. He doesn't make the moles.
That's why he's upset.
And this is why he's upset. Do you see what's happening here? So there's a lot of kind of like little parallels going on.
Okay.
Now, if someone's not versed in religion, or they haven't read Genesis before, that's okay. You can still like do the poem. It's not like you have to be thinking about that.
Yeah.
But if someone is versed in religion and they are familiar with like the story of Genesis, well then this becomes even more rewarding.
Yeah, I could see that, but I could also see that I wouldn't have got to Genesis reading this.
That's the beauty of the poem, because you can bring whatever you want to it.
Okay. Because I wouldn't have gotten there. I would have just... I don't know. I would have been like stumped by the first line and the way everything's kind of...
I see.
It would have been a stumbling block.
There's always going to be things in poems that we miss. And it could also be that there's also things in poems that we add. So it could very well be she wasn't thinking about Book of Genesis when she was... However, when I make the argument, you can also see the argument, right? So we can transform art to what we need it to be.
Okay.
So it's not like an either or, it's a yes and.